2015, an elite DFS Army Commando unit formed to bring high-level DFS strategy to the masses. Today, hated by DFS sharks and lineup sellers alike, they continue their quest to turn Joe into DFS pros.
Hello and welcome to the Taco Tuesday PGA DFS podcast presented to you by DFSArmy.com. Check out our content using the link in the description and use promo code TACO on sign up for a lifetime 10% off. So this week we are going to Canada for the RBC Canadian Open. It'll be at Glen Abbey Golf Course. This is a semi-rotating course. It's kind of random as to which course we go to, but we've been going to Glen Abbey a lot lately. This will be the final time that the PGA Tour will be teeing it up here at Glen Abbey Golf Club. Now, checking out the golf club real quick, it's a par 72, 7,200 yard par 72. It's not terribly long. A lot of the par 5s. It has four par 5s. A lot of the par 5s are on the shorter side. Very reachable. It's usually up in the top 3 each year on tour in eagles made. You see a lot of eagles here with these short par 5s. You won't get any from the par 4s because there are no short par 4s this week. However, there are 7 medium length par 4s. So that's going to be just one stat to look at here. But we're going to want to focus on the par 5 scoring. This is quite a birdie fest, honestly. So we're going to want to look at one of these stats I added to the research station this week. Just birdies gained. It's birdies gained to the field average. So, you know, how many more or less birdies a player gets than everyone else in the field does. Just another good indicator of fantasy scoring. Of course, fantasy points gained is going to help tell you the whole story with finishing position involved in that too. But it's going to be a birdie fest. Right now we see a little bit of rain in the forecast, and we know that we saw Johnny Vegas break 20 under last year when the course got softened up. So huge difference from his first win in 2016 where he finished 12 under. So things can vary here wildly. It seems like the course has many different ways it could shake out. You know, in 2013, average score was 1 under par. In 2015, it was 2.5 strokes under par. 2016, a stroke and a half over par. And last year was almost 5 strokes under par. If we see anything like that again, I'd guess the winning score goes back to being around like 18 under par or so. Unless somebody just tears up this course. You never really know. But when you're looking at this course and the things you need to know, driving accuracy here is pretty optional. We see year after year, the average driving accuracy in the field is under 50%. And the driving distance over 300 yards. This is definitely not really a bomber's course, but this is a course where you're free to bomb it away. You can think about it a little bit like Quail Hollow, how they had it set up to where the rough was not very penal at all, so you can always pull the driver out of the bag. We saw, where was it? Jason Day back in 2015 when he won this thing. He scored 134 fantasy points, so he was 4 strokes under Vegas, yet managed to score more fantasy points, mainly due to the fact that Vegas had that 21 under score without a single eagle. So that's interesting, but Jason Day put up the most fantasy points we've seen at this course, and he did it with 37% driving accuracy. Brandt Snedeker, usually a very accurate guy, he won back here in 2013 with 44% driving accuracy. Brandon Hagee last year, we saw him with the 39% driving accuracy, put up a ton of fantasy points. So at least with the higher end scores here, driving distance driving accuracy can be optional. We have seen shorter guys do well here. I mean, Ches Reavie has won this thing. Obviously, I mentioned Snedeker. He's not very long off the tee. He hit it 282 on average in that event that he won. Poulter's third last year, and he was hitting it 284 off the tee. But we also saw Bubba Watson 2015 finish second. He was hitting it 339 yards off of the tee. So it's always an interesting thing you can do with the research station, the historical performances tab. Just look at all of the top fantasy scoring performances. You can kind of get a sense of what all comes into making a good fantasy score here. Of course, you run some correlations off of fantasy points, and driving distance and driving accuracy actually come in equal. Greens regulation obviously sticks out a lot, strokes gained approach a lot. We see that when you run this by season-long numbers, strokes gained off the tee really pops up a lot more than it usually does. And strokes gained around the tee, or not around the tee, that'd be weird. Strokes gained around the green kind of comes up a little bit too, because you will be doing a lot of scrambling, but it's like light scrambling, especially if you're one of the guys that hits it over 300 yards off the tee. You're going to want to have at least a decent scrambling game, so it's pretty easy to see why Jason Day has done well here in the past. And putting, of course, you don't have to have good season-long putting coming in. We saw that. But you do have to putt pretty decently for the most part in the tournament. All the top scorers here have at least positive strokes gained putting outside of Gary Woodland last year. So overall, what we're looking for, I'll first off say, usually we're looking at strokes gained approach a lot. I say this week, strokes gained off the tee, and your par 5 fantasy points per hole, especially on the shorter par 5s. Those are going to be absolutely essential this week. Birdies gained, fantasy points gained. One little change that I made to the research station this week, instead of having, just the raw numbers of distance and accuracy and all that, and then, the numbers for greens regulations gained to the field, that was like a percentage, and the same with fairways gained and things like that. I've kind of baked those into the numbers now, so pretty much the driving distance, accuracy, greens regulation, all that you see on the research station, it's all been field adjusted. So basically a quick way to walk you through the methodology of this so you understand what's going on here is I just take the average, like for driving distance, I'll take the PGA Tour average. But for each event that a golfer is in, I will compare their average driving distance to the average driving distance of the field. Because at an event like this, for example, the Canadian Open, where everyone's bombing it, or especially last week, certainly like round 1 of last week, where guys were hitting it like well over 300 yards. DeChambeau averaged like 370 some yards off the tee. That will be averaged appropriately to the field and playing conditions and the field strength. You'll see, and the numbers pretty much reflect that. So driving distance adjusted to the field. It's going to be an important stat this week. Accuracy, kind of optional. You can see guys that are not very accurate off the tee do well, but you do want to see them gaining strokes off the tee. Approach the green. We're looking for that every week, of course. This week I kind of want to look at off the tee stats more. And like I had said, those short par 5 fantasy points per hole. Don't have to really... I mean, there are a lot of double bogeys and triple bogeys in play. Kind of get more of the aggressive players that play this course. And I think last year it ranked like top 5 in double bogey percentage for all the events on tour. So just something to be mindful of. It kind of makes the chalk less appealing when it can get a little dicey like that, but you really want to play a few of the really good guys that are in this field, because your real birdie makers kind of showed up. So you want to be paying for the DJs, Koepkas, and Fleetwoods of the world, Finaus. The bombers kind of came to play here. Not a whole lot of the accuracy guys, the Paul Caseys of the world kind of showed up. Matt Kuchar did, but Kuchar's really good here. And it wouldn't really surprise me if Kuchar showed up to any event, because the dude just loves to play. He plays a lot. So looking at the field here, DJ, Brooks, Fleetwood, like I had said, top 3 in the field. And the interesting thing about this week is that the Barbasol Championship was last week, and it was postponed one day, finished on Monday, because of lightning and, well, thunder. I guess lightning being a lot more important than thunder there now that I think about it. But the Barbasol being delayed a day kind of made the Vegas odds come out. And DraftKings, they usually post their salaries around 1 to 2 on Monday or so. They ended up waiting until late Monday evening, and they posted their salaries. I know they like to use the odds to go off of, and since they posted early, you'd figure that you'd see some pricing that's really off, and you can see that a few guys are really mispriced here. At least guys on DraftKings, guys like Jimmy Walker, Wesley Bryan, they're just incredibly overpriced, and a few guys are seriously underpriced. Charlie Hoffman's well underpriced. There are a few examples I'll go through in the field. So see kind of more value this week than you usually do, but what I'm noticing is that at each price point there are several pivot options that you can easily go to, and it's pretty clear to see on the research station. Go to any price point and you can see that there are similar value guys for a lot of these guys that you can pivot off of. So I know a few guys will be very popular this week, and probably for good reason, but just know that there are some other options on the table, and outside of a handful of guys up at the top that make this field pretty decent, like Dustin Johnson, guys that were brought here by the sponsor RBC. As you go down the field, you can see it's not really the strongest of fields. Usually this is a weaker field. I think last year it was a lot weaker of a field than we have this year. This year it seems to be at least all right in the mid-range. We got a few interesting young guns in play. Of course, you have Neiman, and you've got Cam Champ, who's under 50 to 1 right now, and he's very underpriced on DraftKings, but he's also a giant question mark because he's coming off of the Web.com tour. We'll get into that a little bit later in the value section. For now, let's just focus on the top of this field here. So you've got Dustin Johnson, an obvious favorite here, coming off of a very disappointing miscut at the Open Championship, where he was not the chalk, but one of the chalkiest guys. Definitely the guy that most people expected to do well. Pretty much all top 15 finishes this year. The win at the St. Jude, finishing third in the U.S. Open. I mean, everyone was just piling onto DJ because DJ was just the best play in the field, and he shit the bed. He was still definitely the best play to make. You really shouldn't feel bad about using him. A miscut at the Open Championship is not really gonna doom you here. I would much rather you miss the cut at the Open Championship last week than to miss the cut at the Barbasol. That's what I really want to see. Guys that missed the cut at the Barbasol, that was horrible, because that field strength was just ridiculously bad. According to our field strength numbers, it was second only to the Corrales Punta Canas in field strength this year. It was not a good one, as where the Open Championship was one of the better ones, of course, being a major. And a lot of these guys kind of are unfamiliar with Europe and all that. Not really many excuses for the top guys in the field, but you had some guys that the miscut over there was almost expected, like a lot of these younger guys. younger Americans. Kind of expected, but you did have some surprise miscuts, and Dustin Johnson was obviously one of them. And it was his first bad performance of the year. We've seen him miss the cut pretty badly in situations like this before. We hadn't seen that so far yet this season, this 2018 season. So, that happens. That happens with every golfer. I can't think of one golfer that doesn't have a horrible, poorly timed miscut like that. I mean, Kuchar just had one at the U.S. Open. Paul Casey, someone else you'd think of that's pretty much solid every week. He had a bad miscut this year. He had a couple of them not too long ago. So there's no one that's safe. Dustin Johnson usually he's the safest golfer that there is in any given field. He's probably the best golfer in the world pound for pound here, and even he is very capable of missing cuts. Nobody's perfect. Only Tiger Woods circa like early 2000s. That's the only time, at least recently, that anyone's been perfect, and even that came to an end eventually. Speaking of the Devils, very, very impressive performance by Tiger. I'm just so glad to have him back. I take it these trains in the background are never gonna go away, but gotta keep industry flowing. Hope it's not too big of a bother. Doing this in the middle of the night, everything is a little bit pushed forward this week. We didn't have the salaries come out till later. Vegas odds weren't out till later. Research Station wasn't out until a little bit later. And the Taco Tuesday podcast looking a little bit like a Taco Wednesday podcast. But you know what? We're here. We're doing this. It's good stuff so far. So Dustin Johnson. The numbers, every single statistical category still. I know we didn't get strokes gained numbers from last week for the guys that play the Open Championship. We got them from the Barbasol Championship. Just, there's no shot link. So when there's no shot link, you can't really measure the shots with the lasers because the lasers aren't a firing. So obviously, when you're looking at the last time out, that'd be the U.S. Open, and he gained strokes in every category, just like he does not every single time out, but every split that we can look at last 5 season long, every single category is gaining at least half a stroke. It's incredible. He's very good. Very good. Coming off the miscut, they'll keep his ownership in check. You really do have to pay a pretty penny for him at $11,700. On FanDuel, it makes a lot more sense. He's barely more expensive than Koepka and Fleetwood and Finau. So, on DraftKings, it's understandable if you want to go a different route. On FanDuel, he's going to get a little bit chalkier there, I'd guess, but coming off the miscut, I couldn't imagine it's too bad. He just rates out for the course just amazingly. Gains almost 4 birdies per event to the field, and that's one of the best numbers on the board there. Fantasy points gained, nobody comes even close. 29 fantasy points gained per event. No one's within like 10 of that, except for Finau, who's just been awesome. So if you look at the stats that are important this week when you're looking at hole types, the medium length par 4s, where there are 7 of them. He's one of the best in the field at that. And he is also one of the best in the field at short par 5s. His numbers for fantasy point averages at short par 5s a lot better than his long par 5 numbers, where he can get into a little bit of trouble. The short ones are just easy for him. He cleans them up. And it's him and Stricker. Him and Stricker up at the top. They are just way ahead of the field when it comes to that short par 5 scoring statistic up top. And Stricker lacks the medium medium length par 4s, that's one of Dustin Johnson's biggest strengths also. So he's like the perfect bounce back play here. I could see him easily winning this thing. The field's not really that stacked overall, and I don't see a lot of winners up top outside of like Brooks. So this is kind of DJ's to lose here. He's 7-1, so he's better, definitely better off than than you'd be playing him last week in a much weaker field. And the numbers just kind of they kind of speak for themselves here. You're just going to have a problem affording him on DraftKings. So enough about DJ here. Brooks, he was looking horrible. Round 1, 5 strokes over. Had just a terrific Friday. Definitely play him in those Friday showdowns, man, because, man, his round 2 is just amazing constantly. Was fighting back really hard. Ended up making the cut. And seemed like he was going to be a guy that make a charge on the weekend because he's coming in on that ridiculous record at majors, where he pretty much always finishes in like the top 25. Ended up finishing T39 with just an okay weekend, but put up a lot of birdies. It was really nice for showdown. And you kind of see one of his biggest struggles that we have on here is the double bogey or worse percentage. So you kind of worry about that here. Where he can definitely find trouble, but at the same time, it's going to be more forgiving, for Koepka, and that's going to be great. He's gaining strokes off the tee very consistently. Same with approach, just questionable scrambling. That's about it. Very expensive in this field, 12-1. On FanDuel, the difference between him and DJ is a lot, but on DraftKings, Koepka seems to hold about the same value as Dustin Johnson does when you compare the price. They have, I guess not similar upside. DJ has more upside, obviously, here, but Koepka is also very capable of winning this thing. He's in good current form, hasn't missed a cut yet this season after coming back from the injury. So Koepka is going to make a fine play here. Just, I'd play about as much Koepka as DJ unless you're trying to take a stand on DJ, which is probably a decent move if you think he's going to be on the lower side of ownership at all. And then you've got Tommy Fleetwood, who, when you adjust his stats and it makes him even better because he plays in the strongest of fields. And, man, he's just awesome with the driver. 302 off the tee, 70% adjusted driving accuracy percentage. Strokes gained off the tee is the name of his game, and last time out at the Open Championship, he had a very good performance, finished 12th, had that hot round on Friday, and at the U.S. Open, last time we had shot tracker stats for him, gained a ton of strokes off the tee, and especially approach, and you always like to see that, even at a really good putter going for him. So you can keep that rolling. He's going to be I think he's an excellent play here. We don't have a ton of PGA Tour data, but we're starting to get some. He has 15 cut events played here now. Top 5 percentage of 24%. No wins yet, but a quarter of the time he's finishing top 5, a third of the time he's finishing top 10, and half the time he's finishing top 20. Not bad numbers. He's definitely going to get up there eventually, and he's a lot better than the next option I'm going to talk about it, and that is one Sergio Garcia at $9,900, $11,200 on FanDuel. Just well overpriced. Had another horrible performance at the Open Championship. Missed the cut by a couple strokes. Just not good. Horrible. His approach game just kind of escaped him, and that's been his bread and butter, but it's been consistently bad over the last several times we've seen him out there. Just he's got to be in a void until he gets it together. And you can see he's surrounded by guys in the teens when it comes to the odds, and he is sitting there at 30-1, just not looking like a good value whatsoever. Tony Finau, $9,800. $12,100 on FanDuel. Very good price over there on FanDuel. That's what DraftKings should have priced him at, because Finau had another amazing major performance. That's 3 top 10s for him this year at the majors. That's just incredible. He's not broken through with a win yet, but you can feel that coming. It's coming soon. He almost had one here last year. Ended up finishing 6th. 16-1. 16-1 guy at $9,800 on DraftKings. That makes a guy the chalk. He's going to be the chalk up here. No questions about it. And you know what? He he just deserves to be. He absolutely deserves to be the chalk. He's just been so good, so consistent, always getting those greens of regulation, well over 70% in that category. Gaining fantasy points, it's almost on the level of Dustin Johnson. Well, not quite there, but he's second best in the entire field when it comes to that. Fantasy points per hole, the medium par fours, the short par fives, good at both of those. Tony Finau kind of hits all the marks that we want here. Incredibly long off the tee. He's just an excellent play, and the reason you don't play him is simply the ownership. And it's true that in golf, you do want to fade a lot of the guys with higher ownership. And, just in 2016, he finished 70th here. At the St. Jude Classic, I don't know if he missed the cut or MDF there, but he finished 73rd. Was not great. So it can definitely happen with Finau. He's not... It's not a guaranteed thing. He just looks to be in a really nice spot. Bubba Watson at 9,600, runner-up here in 2015. Now, I forgot to mention with the course history here, we're only looking at the years 2017, 2016, 2015, 2013, 2009, 2008. So, some guys may have good finishes here from like 2014 or 2012 or so. Those don't really matter. So, sorry, Jim Furyk. I know he had like 2 wins and a runner-up at the other courses, but kind of only care about Glen Abbey, at least for this year. And Bubba Watson, he has that runner-up here, this course, in 2015. 42nd last year and 21st in 2013. Not a bad history, really. Coming off the miscut at the Open Championship, that's kind of to be expected. Not a huge fan of the Open Championship for him, but he's 3 wins on tour this year, and whatever strokes gained off the tee are in play. You got to look to Bubba. He's one of the top. He is actually the top in this field in both season long and strokes gained off the tee in the last 5 events played. That's kind of what he does. Approach game pretty decent last time out. Well, obviously not last time out, the Open Championship, but last measurable time out, the Greenbrier. So, Bubba's going to be a good GPP play. I would not play him in cash at all. Wouldn't really touch him there. But I do like the strokes gained off the tee you're seeing with him. I mean, that's always been his MO. Matt Kuchar, very good course history here. Had 3 top 10s in a row going into last year where he finished T32, which is, just all right for him. Had been in questionable form going into the Open Championship, took some weeks off, and then posted a top 10 finish the year after finishing runner-up at the Open Championship. Really showed up when you expected him to. This is kind of a place where you expect him to show up a little bit. He's always had some success here. Good numbers, but his tee to green game recently has not been impressive at all. And that's pretty much what I worry with Kuchar here. Usually the answer with Kuchar is to just fade him in GPP and play him in cash games because he has the ridiculous 88% made cut percentage, 74% adjusted field rank, and that could definitely be the move here. There are a lot of higher end GPP plays surrounding the guy. Neiman, Tony Finau, Watson, obviously. So, you just kind of treat Kuchar how you normally treat Kuchar. And you've got Joaquin Neiman, $9,400, $11,000 on FanDuel, and just coming in right under 30-1. I'm sure we see that drift a little bit. Probably end around 27, 28-1 or so. I think he's going to get a little love. He'd been, back and forth with the top 10s and miscuts to begin his season. Kind of putting it together the last 3 times out. They were at the 3 of the weakest fields of the year, so keep that in mind. But all top 25 finishes. The 5th at the Greenbrier. Neiman, he's definitely the hot young name of this year. Starting to feel a lot like Jon Rahm. I mentioned that before. It kind of feels like his rookie year. A lot of people piling onto him. Tee to green game is just phenomenal. Both both with his approach and off the tee. And that's what you're looking for here. The putting's been questionable, but who cares with a 73% adjusted greens regulation percentage? That's the best in the field. The birdies gained are right there with Fleetwood and Johnson up among the best. So Neiman, definitely a very high upside GPP play that you could definitely throw in cash at this point, honestly. Jimmy Walker, horribly mispriced up here, so don't play him. That's hasn't done anything recently. He's just not been there. Gary Woodland, again, we're talking off the tee, and that's just what he's been doing consistently this year. Just constantly gaining tons of strokes off the tee. And on FanDuel, Gary Woodland also makes for a really, really nice play over there. Ian Poulter coming off the miscut at the Open Championship, and it was a pretty awful miscut. Missed it by several strokes, and it's kind of a place where you'd expect him to do well at. Now, he finished third last year here, so maybe that would give you some reason to play him. I'm kind of hesitant with him. You've got Kisner, who out of nowhere almost won a major after just some really, really shady form. With Kisner, I don't think he doesn't birdie enough for me. He hasn't really, outside of, the one performance at the Open Championship, I haven't seen much from him, and he was getting it all done through the putter at the Open Championship, just putting his mind out. So not really too interested in Kisner this week. Maybe on FanDuel, where he's an all right a value over there. JB Holmes, he's he's again off the tee. He's a big bomber. He can definitely bang it around here. 14th last year. Definitely a better play on FanDuel. Again, 8-9 is kind of pricey on DK, but it's hard to pick a lot of the options around here. You did have Chesson Hadley in this range who withdrew, and then you're going to have Charlie Hoffman, who's going to be the extreme chalk, so it's hard to make a ton of plays around here, especially if you don't like Kisner and Poulter. JB Holmes, he should definitely be in play a little bit, but just be mindful. I mean, he lost over a stroke approach last time out at the Greenbrier Classic, and that caused him to miss the cut. He's missed a couple cuts in a row, but right before then, you gotta remember the second at the Travelers, third at the St. Jude Classic, 13th at the Memorial. So for GPP, JB Holmes definitely a play to look to. And the last two plays I will talk about in this upper range here before I cut it off for the free members and we go VIP only. Steve Stricker at $8,800 and a very mispriced Charlie Hoffman at $8,700. Now, just to get Hoffman over with you real quick, almost won last year, 7th in 2015, 16th in 2013, 28th in 2008. And three straight top 20s for the guy, including most recently a 17th at the Open Championship. Very impressive for him. He's just going to be massively chalk. You see him at 25-1, and he's cheaper than Stricker, who's 62-1. Just a little bit more expensive than Wes Bryant, who's 123-1. So, yeah, you can see why DraftKings likes to wait until after the odds come out to make their pricing. So yeah, Hoffman just going to be incredibly popular this week. I mean, it's definitely easy to play him, that's for sure, in this range. But with Stricker, I kind of wanted to make the case for him again here. I know he kind of failed to perform at the John Deere. Made the cut, but just barely. Really struggled round one. Just kind of muddled his way to a T43 finish. Now, Stricker doesn't have history here, really. 63rd place finish in 2015. That's it. And, it could be kind of easy to start to forget about him. Doesn't really feel like a course where he's going to do all too well. But still, just, in cash games, I think he's definitely a strong consideration. I like how he actually is number one in this entire field when it comes to fantasy points per hole on short par fives. He is just money at them. He takes the easy birdie every time. And on shorter par fives like this, when the eagle is in play, he can definitely get it done with his long irons on that second shot. Pretty good par 3 numbers as well, and with 4 par 3s on the course, that's going to be good. His biggest struggle is actually short par 4s, of which there are none on this course. So I think the course is a very, very good fit for Stricker, and he actually averages double the fantasy points on short par 5s than he does on long par 5s. So with the par 5 skewing short, I think this could be an excellent spot for Stricker, who, we've seen the one miscut that he had was at a course where the par 5s are on the longer side. So, I don't know, I just like the way the statistics kind of work out there for Stricker, and I just like Stricker overall. He's a really safe play, probably a good option to make the cut. You don't think of him as a big birdie scorer, but he does gain over a birdie on the field on average. That's pretty good. And of course, all the stats outside of driving distance are in the positive and looking good. So that's going to be it for the main part of this podcast. And after a quick break, I will come back and finish out the rest of this field, dig deep down in there for you VIP members. And if you want to come join, remember, check out dfsarmy.com. You can use our research station and our domination station lineup optimizer. And it's something you definitely want to check out. It breaks down the statistics just incredibly well. So many things to look at. You got our stat cruncher you can download and customize your own models. You can see the historical performances, how everyone's done at this course, and all their fantasy point values and such. You can see the different statistics just based on where people finish and by strokes gained and things like that. You got the showdown tools. It's been doing pretty well in showdown. And of course, again, the domination station optimizer. For mass multi-entry, make hundreds of lineups in seconds using our proven projections that are they've been faring really well this season. A lot of humongous winners, and we're just going to keep adding to that and putting those helmets on top. So remember, dfsarmy.com. Use promo code TACO on sign up to support the pod.
Thank you for listening to the DFS Army podcast. Join the DFS Army today and gain access to our private Slack chat, where you can chat with real DFS pros and coaches, as well as other DFS Army members with winning track records. Also included in your membership is access to our premium articles, DFS Army weighted projections for every sport we offer, from NFL to MMA, weekly player picks and cheat sheets, the strategy vault of timeless concepts, and the DFS Army Domination Station, a truly state-of-the-art lineup optimizer, offering your personal projections or ours. The DFS Army membership is the best value across the industry. Join today and get 2 free ebooks, as well as the secrets to unlocking a new level to your game.